Welcome, everyone. This is episode 28 of the Dance to Oneness podcast. My name is Amy Shine. I'm your host. And this week, I have the beautiful, the amazing, the wonderful Laleh Hancock with us today. And Laleh she's a business, business entrepreneur, creator, global trotter, creator of many businesses. She also is an access consciousness facilitator, and I know she's a joy business facilitator. Conscious horse, conscious rider. I think she does all the access specialties. Conscious parents, conscious kids. What else do you do, Laleh?
Well, joy business, being you, right voice right for you. Don't forget money, right riches, wealth creators.
Yeah, I really wanted you to come on and talk about wealth, but you are coming on to talk about Conscious Vagina, and maybe you could talk about what Conscious Vagina has got to do with making you money and adding to the wealth of your life.
Mm-hmm.
So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm super excited. I just love even the title, like the dance to oneness. Yes. And that's actually, I would say that's what Conscious Vagina is. It was created, I don't even remember now when, a few years back, it got created in a Right Voice for You class in France, where for 3 days we're in this masterclass and working with people with different ways to have their voice out in the world. And it just seemed like the vagina just kept coming up, like all this blockage and all these things that from a childhood, someone had some trauma going on there, or someone, it just seemed to come up, but we made fun of it. We were just like, oh my God, this is the vagina class instead of the Right Voice for You class. And I should talk to the founder of Access Consciousness, Gary Douglas, and say, hey, can I facilitate a class called the Right Vagina for You?
I love it. But you know what I love about that is it's like giving your vagina its voice, and like how much we don't include our vaginas and we don't give our vagina its own voice.
Yeah. And let me tell you a little bit, because I think sometimes people read these two words put together and they create their own imagination, which is good. Do it. Keep going. But one of the reasons this was actually created was to stop the limitation of cutting off parts of your body in your life, and so often we don't even realize why we do it, but it just seems to be the trend from the minute you're a little kid, that there's expectation if you're a girl and there's expectation if you're a boy. And then at a certain age, then everything becomes inappropriate, and it becomes taboo and it becomes all these things. And so Conscious Vagina is actually called Conscious Vagina and More, because it includes discussions about penis. It includes us, including men, in these programs and the workshops, because all of us, it's about not excluding, but including every part of you, the physical you, the energetic you, in every aspect of your life. And what I love is, different people take this class, and yet it's one of my you always get feedback, Access Consciousness, the tools are so amazing. This is one class, everybody messages me afterwards for the changes, because they just notice how different their level of confidence becomes. And when they stopped this separation with their vagina, they're happier, they make more money, because you said wealth earlier is not just about money, but the creation of their life and living their business, their relationships with others. It just seems that now that this is at oneness with all parts of their body, becomes the oneness of their lives.
Yeah. So what does that mean? What does it mean to have a conscious vagina? What does that involve?
Yeah. So your vagina is already conscious. You're the one who's not.
Boom.
And people ask me, does that mean the penis is conscious too? And I said, yes, because we're the ones with the points of views. And actually, if you allow just for a moment, like just close your eyes. And as you're sitting, or if you're even laying on a bed or wherever you are, I guess if you're driving, don't close your eyes, but like just notice the way you're even sitting in your chair. And whether you're a man, woman in this body form right now, but just like for a moment, just be like, hi. And notice you engaging with your vagina, your penis, but also engage with your toes. Engage with the hair on your head and your ears, your nose, your lips, like truly engaging and saying hello to every single amazing part of your body. And when you're ready, open your eyes. It doesn't take much, but if we're willing to truly be this oneness with our bodies, no matter what your body looks like, no matter what, your sexual, I'll say your sex is in this lifetime. But when we do include that instant relaxation, it engages you not just with your physical body, but with every molecule in the universe, with the earth. And that's really what we're being, we're being our oneness.
And it was like when you just did that exercise, and I just like dropped down into my body and like was like, oh, hi, vagina. Like you're there, and it was kind of like, hi. And it was like, I was like, oh, wow. Like, what would you like to create today? Like, have I even consulted you today? And I realized like we spend so much time in our heads, figuring out what we're going to do today, how we're going to make money, how we're going to pay for rent, like, and it's like, do we ever even consult our vagina, like, and include it? Like it has an intelligence too. Instead, we function so much from our head, which is really interesting because your vagina actually does connect to your brain. Mm-hmm. There's a connection between your vagina and your brain, but how much we don't actually use that or even include it and just go to the mind, the invented thoughts, feelings, emotions, the invented points of views and all that we create in our head to keep us busy and distracted.
That's actually one of the topics that we discuss a lot in Conscious Vagina, because we have been programmed. You learn from a very young age to go away from your innate communication with your vagina and your body. I mean, think about a 3-year-old. She's totally including her vagina in every conversation, she's even flashing possibly everybody else with it, but there is this total communion. And that's what I said. It's like we become programmed. We get into the norm of like, oh, at a certain age, it now becomes taboo and you shouldn't include it. But when you do, and it's not a separation. And, when I say include your vagina, it doesn't mean leave your toes out. It doesn't mean leave your ears out. It's like truly this willingness to have all of you, your physical body, your energetic body included in what you're doing. And, your body is the earth. So you are doing this restoration of communion with the earth when you are including. And wouldn't the earth be a fun partner to include in, what would it be like to have more money today? What would it be like to have my business thriving, growing, and reaching more people? Like, why are we separating? Now's the time for us to explore what is truly being us and the oneness of us, and connecting and engaging with every molecule and allowing everything and everyone to contribute.
Yeah, and if you were actually fully embodied, truly embodied, you wouldn't have the worry, the fear, the anxiety, the mind masturbation, because as a child, you didn't have that. Like you spoke about the 3-year-old, like you weren't worrying about when you were going to get fed or if there was going to be enough food for your dinner. You were so fully embodied. You knew that everything was already taken care of.
Yeah. And like you, from that conversation you're just sharing, it's like we are energy, we are space, we are consciousness. And so when you are willing not to separate from any part of you, you actually allow the energies to feed you, you know? So you be energy and you receive even more energy. Most kids, you have to not force them to eat, but you have to force them to stop playing to come to eat.
Mm.
They don't require the food. And that's the other piece, is like when you're young, your desire for food isn't to stop what you're doing. It's that nibble here and a nibble there, you know? Because you actually enjoy it. But somewhere along the way, our parents learned from their parents of, no, you know, if you do this, you have to do this. And therefore it's this time you have to have dinner. This time you have to have lunch. This time you have to have breakfast. This time you have to have a snack, you know? But the more connected you are actually with your full body, I've noticed my desire for food is not the same. Even my desire for drinking water or anything else changes too.
I love it.
Notice the space and the peace as we're having this conversation. You know? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love it. Someone wrote, me and my conscious vagina are present and listening to you geniuses.
I love whoever that is. I love it. Hi, Monique. And Sue. Oh, hi, Sue. It's so nice to have you here. Yeah, and you know, it's interesting because when Conscious Vagina was actually, you know, actualizing into a name and everything else, it was really interesting of looking at different aspects of, like, you know, I'd say the decisions and the judgments made about our bodies. Like I became so aware of like what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. And it just came, you know, it's just the name that I wanted to have. And I had no point of view of what it was. It's just what it wanted to be. But the more I've gotten to facilitate this, and we have a lot of different kind of programs. It's not just a class or a workshop or a seminar. It actually has different things that it does going into schools and working with kids and their bodies and, you know, body image and some other things like that. Like the more I realize, oh, wow, like I never realized that, you know, this is something that people are scared and want to have nothing to do with. You know what I mean? Because when we start to have that oneness with us, all those judgments melt away. All the judgments around us start to melt away. And so what I've also found is how just wherever I'm standing, or not even standing, wherever I'm communicating with someone or whatever, how easily their points of views melt away too. So it's shown me how when we are present, we are including our bodies. Our bodies have no judgments. It's us, you know, it's us with the mind. How much our bodies engage with other bodies, how much our bodies are also sharing possibilities with others. And so it really has shown me a whole new world of how things are, but really also what's possible. So I wonder, like, just this moment as you guys are, you know, just listening here, what would your vagina like to share with you? And if you're a male watching, what would your penis like to share with you? And it may not be words, guys, too. What space is it showing you? Because really, it's here, can communicate, it's here to contribute.
It's like there's so much more. Like what I'm getting is like from my vagina, it's like there's so much more than what we've been told. You know, like so like, oh, your vagina is, you know, part of your body. It's part of your anatomy. You know, it's helps you go to the bathroom, and you know your menstrual cycle, and obviously, you know, the act of copulation, and then also giving birth and having babies and all that like functional stuff that our vagina does. But like how much of that is like this reality, like that's all that is for, rather than like actually, like you said, your vagina has a consciousness of its own, and it can talk to you, and it can contribute to you, and it can gift you so much if you're willing to go beyond what you're told this is for. You know, like there's so much more that your vagina can actually gift to you if you include it beyond the functional things.
Yeah. And you know, it's really interesting because the future talks and, you know, and whispers to us in such different ways, and it usually does it via our body, the business, or other ways. And one of the things that I found is like you just described, is if you're not just thinking about right here, right now, like where is your vagina also gifting, contributing, and creating with you already that you haven't even acknowledged yet? And start to play with that energy and that awareness. And then what else is possible, and how does it get even better? Because you're already communicating, whether you know it or not. There is this energetic interaction with you and your vagina or your penis. And so, you know, like you said, when you got to go pee, you know. And even some women who have itching problems, or they have yeast problems, bladder infections, and things of that sort, that is your body and your vagina communicating so much beyond what this reality would tell you. Treat it with this medicine. And so whatever you have that also you think, oh, it's a problem with my vagina, or I have so many women that talk to me about the problems with their vagina, and then they'll talk about like, oh yeah, I'm happy, you know, I actually communicated. Like I put a mirror there, start communicating, have a friendship, you know. But it really is like, what if none of that is a problem? And if you engaged with it today and started asking, what do you require? Is there a certain energy your vagina required? Is there a certain amount of water it requires? Does it require cranberry? Like, it will guide you. Like coming to Mexico, like traveling to different countries, my body requires different things. And coming to Mexico, my body required a lot more cranberry juice. And it was so funny because I was like, okay, because I always ask questions at the grocery store, Body, what would you like me to buy? Whatever. And this was the vagina. This was totally the vagina talking to me. It had nothing to do with copulation. It had nothing to do with anything other than the cranberry juice provided some nutrient for my physical body that allowed me to actually handle some stuff I had going on last week with like low energy. I was just tapping in. I think I was just aware of the earthquake that was going to happen yesterday. But your body will communicate. And so if you start to listen, I wonder what else, what other awarenesses that you haven't considered yet.
I love it. You know, I just realized like this is what makes access so different, is that like the questions, and it's so simple. It's a question. Like, I mean, you don't need to go to college and get a degree to ask a question. Anyone can ask a question. But I realized, because I've been reading, you know, I told you I was reading the book, it's called Vagina by Naomi Wolf. And I think I'm going to get the other one too. It's another one called Pussy Power. Which they're all great books and they give you great information. But I realize like none of them talk about asking questions, you know, like none of them, like a lot of it is information and stuff you might not know about the vagina, because the vagina actually is very vastly understudied. Like there's not a lot of information around the vagina, and the medical community are incredibly lacking in what they know about the vagina too. So it was a really interesting book to read. But just what I realized in reading it, it was very like matter of fact kind of book, and missing these questions. Like when you add the questions, that there's like a whole other universe available beyond like what we think is available.
Well, you're in the future because we've already started the book for Conscious Vagina. Yeah, it has a couple of different chapters in it already. It's not ready to launch yet. Well, but I wonder what today. You never know. After today, it may launch soon. But it's like, one of the things I realized as well, even having twins that are girls, the family that I grew up with, we just didn't have these conversations. From the Middle East. Well, I don't know, but I came from a family from the Middle East. My dad was very strict. My mom, it's funny, she used to joke about it a lot, and I wanted nothing to do with it because, like, I don't know, I think I was perceiving a lot in her world of judgments and stuff like that. But for my girls, we had such a different relationship. From the minute they were 2, I told them everything, and I would ask them questions. I would include them from the age of 2 in the decisions that we were making in life. And, they always knew they could talk to me, and, we had different conversations. And I realized many years ago at a Joy of Business certified facilitator class, I was like, I'd like to create a program for girls and boys who can have this in a non-judgmental way, have this information available to them about them and their bodies. And, it wasn't until about 2 weeks ago that I realized I actually am going to put this in, I'm going to actualize this. I'm going to stop talking about it because the world is missing this. Us actually having the ability to have this conversation with no point of view that it's all about hating men or going to the extreme that it's all about copulation. It's like, it's really interesting. It's like vagina power if we're doing it against somebody else, or if we're doing it because it's all about a fuck. It's like there's nothing in the middle of what is really this vagina.
Yeah, like I see a lot of like, because a lot of the spiritual, community do like masculine, feminine energy, which just creates more polarity. Like, is there really such a thing as masculine and feminine energy, or is there just energy? Because when you do masculine and feminine, you're creating polarity. You're creating more of the right and wrong. And I have a lot of amazing friends who, do a lot of spiritual, metaphysical stuff. But I can see like they put so much energy on, I must heal the masculine in me. I must heal the feminine. And a lot of the work they do with the vagina is about healing and forgiving the male, which forgiveness comes from a judgment, and a lot of the pussy power stuff is coming from the wrongness that the man has done to the woman, and then healing that. But like, how many lifetimes have you been a man? How many lifetimes have you been a woman? Is it relevant anymore? You're like, we've all been and done it. So I would also love to see us, Laleh, shift away from that man done to woman, woman done to man, male versus female energy, and create something that's all inclusive. And I know I went to an all girls Catholic school, secondary, which would be high school in America. And the only education we got was when we were like 16, we were all put in a hall together and put on the big screen was a talk on STD, a video on STDs. And it was the most disgusting things they showed us, which was basically a scare tactic not to have sex. That was it. Yeah. That was our only education. Yeah. And we definitely was not talked about in the home. I grew up, in a Catholic country, and you just don't talk about those things. So I would love to see a different energy in the world.
It's interesting coming to Mexico. I came for many purposes, actually. One was to facilitate different classes, one of them being Conscious Vagina, but the other was to meet with a friend who has a association, shelters for girls and boys who've been abused and for trafficking. And it really opened such a different world for me being there, and I ended up facilitating my Leaders of Tomorrow program from their shelter. And the magic that they were, like, in this reality, they were the abused victims and they're this, but they're really the leaders. They're the ones who broke the cycle. They're the ones who actually allowed for a new possibility and a new creation. And it was such a beautiful, I was there to show them some bars points and some tools with Leaders of Tomorrow. And it was so beautiful watching the energy and seeing the caring and kindness they had for their bodies. Like, most would be separated from their body, or, you know what I mean? Like, the kindness and caring they got in this shelter, I've never seen it. This would not happen in America, but like, the girls would come and they would hug the teachers and, the therapist and stuff, like this loving and kindness and caring that I've never seen in a shelter,
Yeah.
And it just showed me so much more from energy, but physical, of like, there is no judgment that you cannot change, no matter what. I mean, some of them started from the age of 5. Yeah. Trauma.
There is no trauma that you can't change. I love that you said, like, that, like, these are not victims. These are the people that actually are here to create change in the world, and they have a power available to them. That if we don't look on certain groups as victims and actually empower them, they get to create a massive change in the world.
Yeah, actually, I started calling them all leaders because they are leaders. And I'm doing a program right now for the Afghanistan women and children who are escaping Afghanistan because of what's going on with the Taliban. Actually, Gary just approved it last night. I'm going to be doing some programs for them. And even for them, I refuse to call them refugees or victims, because that's not what they are.
Yeah.
And I realize how much people are there to go help them, like, let's give them the answer and let's do this. And for me, instead, I was like, I'd love to show them there's a different possibility with what they're experiencing right now. And one of them is this communion with their bodies that I'm going to be talking about. Because some of them have been raped, and I mean, there's just all sorts of different things, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And one of your guests, I'm one of the people here, wrote the message about feminism. And I would just invite you, just the word, just when you hear feminism, light, heavy, expanded, constricted, like, go with what you know. I'm a part of a couple of board of directors that are there to empower women, but I never do it from empowerment against men. And that was one of the things I told the people who are part of the board. I was like, I'm not joining to be a rah women against men. But if we're here to make sure women also have a voice, because that's what's missing. I mean, I was an executive a long time in technology and in healthcare and elsewhere, and I was the only woman. All the other executives were men. So yeah, some things are screwed up in our world, but not from that. We need to empower women to have the willingness to be up there with them. We have to empower them not to think they cannot be there, and not from the other way of trying to fix a problem, And so even with gender gaps, hey, women, we have to stand up. We actually have to be able to know, what do you know? What does your body know that you can actually create greater with, instead of the fight? The fight doesn't work.
Yeah, it's not against men.
But most, when they think feminism, though, they have points of views of what that is. But what's yours? So often, what your mom thought about that, or your neighbor thought about that, but deep down inside, what do you know?
I always like to, go back to, like, how were you like before the age of 3, did you see, like, because I grew up with 2 brothers and 1 sister, and like, I just hung out with my brothers all the time. Like, I followed them everywhere. Like, my brother Stephen was a year and a half older than me. So to me, he was like the same as me. Like, there was no age between us. Everyone used to call us twins because we were like the same size as well. So for me, it wasn't like I'm a female, he's a male, and at that age, your mother would give you baths together. And obviously, like, you have different body parts, but it wasn't even a thing in your world. There wasn't like, oh, he's got like a different body part to me. Like, you don't even, like, at age 3, there is none separation in your world. There is no, I'm a female, you're a male. So I love to go back to that age and be like, okay, at that age, I didn't have a point of view about I was male or I was female, he was male, and I couldn't do certain things and he could. And that's what was true. At a certain age, you start creating separations, because someone tells you can't do that because you're a girl. Or he can do that because he's a man, he's a boy, and you're not,
Yeah. It's really interesting. I mean, I look at this generation. I mean, my kids are now 25. So I'd say, from their generation and younger, they don't separate. I really think they're going to show us the world that they want to create looks nothing like our, I know you're younger than me, so it's a little different with your generation as well. But I really wonder what the youth is creating and actualizing we haven't acknowledged, and what's really possible now. Because so much of this is old way of thinking and old way of creating and old way of actualizing. And the new way just is so much simpler and so much more inclusive.
And the old way is falling apart.
Yay!
Someone wrote, can they purchase Conscious Vagina? Is that a class that they can purchase?
Yeah.
Or?
Conscious Vagina Foundation. The last one that I did is not available for a replay, but there is one on my website, globalwellnessforall.com/conscious vagina. There are some classes that are approved there for purchase. And, the whole idea was we're going to have facilitators for Conscious Vagina as well. Just, COVID slowed things down because there's a lot of like in person that we were going to do because there's body work as well involved in some of the classes. So anything that's purchased from there will be a part of the prereqs if you guys also down the road wanted to be a facilitator.
Brilliant. And do you have classes coming up?
You know what? I have to play with that. We had planned until September, August. I don't know yet, August. And then it's changing. Something's changing with Conscious Vagina. And so I know that it desires something in October. I just don't have a date yet. And we'll go from there. But globalwellnessforall.com is where I have everything. So whether you're on social media with us on Instagram or Facebook, all the events are there, or on the website.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, Laleh, thank you so much for joining me today. This was a very enlightening conversation, and I'm sure it's the first of many. I'm excited to see what you create in the world with this, and I really hope you come back on another time too, because I know there's lots of areas of expertise you have. Maybe I'll have you on another week to talk about wealth creation. I love meeting Laleh in class because she'd be like dripping in like gold and like Versace bags. I don't even know if that's a thing, but Louis Vuitton bags and jewelry, and she like wears it so well. You also have beautiful gold as well, and it looks so beautiful on your body. So I'd love you to talk about wealth as well. But thank you so much for creating what you are in the world, and for bringing Conscious Vagina to the world in a different point of view. So,
and thank you so much for this, and thanks for everyone who's watching now and later. And like, what have we already changed? Please, what can we be acknowledging about really what's available for us to choose now with our bodies and with the future?
Yeah, and the fact that we're even having these conversations, it's pretty epic.
Truly. Thank you for having the conversation. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
See you next week. Bye.